today we're going to go through the process of implementing the 1.8.2 hotfix into the merged version of Survival Game Kit and ALS. So if you have my tutorials that you've done before with Advanced Locomotion System and the Survival Game Kit, and you're at 1.8.1 currently, then this video is for you. You'll want to do this video and it'll get you to the 1.8.2 hotfix. If you're using just the plain Survival Game Kit, I have another set of tutorials for that, so please follow those ones, and don't do this one because there may be some variations. If you want to follow along, make sure you go to diffusestudios.com and you'll see the patch notes for the Survival Game Kit, and I'll be doing this 1.8.2 hotfix. It's got a list of 7 or 8 different fixes here, and an improvement. So we'll be doing that in this video. If you want to follow along, you're more than welcome to pull that up, and you can have it on the other monitor. If you enjoy these videos, make sure you like and subscribe. Click the little bell down there. You'll get notifications of when new videos come out. Also, if you want to help support the channel, you're more than welcome to go check out the Patreon. The link will be in the description down below. Also, the Discord. We have a lot of people in the Discord. They're there asking questions, answering questions. It's a great resource and a great place to hang out. So if you're interested in that, click the link below. So let's go ahead and get started. First, we're going to look at this server grid duplication issue. To do that, we need to get in the master grid blueprint. So make sure you have this open. Click Survival Game Kit down the lower left and type master grid. Once this opens, you'll want to be in the main event graph. If you're not there, make sure you double click on the left. And then you'll be in the area that's the red network or multicast events section. And what we want to do is we want to add a node to this. So right now we have a branch that is just making sure it's a locally controlled player or local player control. And then we want to add another branch right after that before the for each loop. So let's go ahead and give ourselves a little bit more space here. I'm going to move from the for each loop over, and then I will do a branch from true. So just type branch. And then on this, we want to use the function isServer. So right click and choose isServer. You'll see that has a function right there. And that will feed into the branch. I'm also just going to clean up my pins a little bit. I like to be able to see right away where things are going. And you can see I'm able to move this in a little bit more. And there we go. So I've got this branch. It's determining whether it's a server or not. Now, one thing that you need to do is is it a server? We want it to go from false because we don't want it to continue if it is a server. So control drag from true to false. And so if it is a server, it ends the condition right there. If it isn't a server, it'll continue on. So that takes care of the first bug. The next is an issue with holdables not attaching on save load. So first let's compile and save this. And then you can close the master grid for now. And then in the filter, search for master holdable. So if you just type master hold, that'll be the blueprint. And then in here, make sure you're in the event graph. You can double click that on the left. Go ahead and zoom out a little bit and go to the lower left of all these. And you should see a new client connected bind. So right here is new client connected bind. What we want to do is create a new custom event and place it right above this. So right click and do custom event. We're going to add a custom event. We're going to call this server new client connected. So server new client connected. Make sure that that executes on the server. So where it says replicates on the upper right, put run on server and then tick reliable. Go ahead and compile that and then drag the output of that into this multicast new client. So once that's compiled, you can then just click and connect. So both of these, either the new client connected bind or the server new client connected, will go into the multicast new client. Next, we will be going and looking at the survival game mode. So go ahead and compile and then save the master holdable. And then you can close that. Now in the filter, let's go ahead and search for survival game mode. Double click that. So in here, we want to make sure we are kind of just here at the bottom in the main event graph. We're going to add another sequence to this. I'm going to put it actually right above this, the one that's at the bottom currently. I'm going to control click and put that at then 4. So this call update resources, I'm going to have that go last. And then I'm going to add a new section here. So we have get all actors of class. I can copy that. I'm going to make a copy of it because we're just going to select another actor there, or another blueprint in there. And so from then 3, I'm going to drag that down to my new get all actors of class. The type I'm going to choose is BP Master Holdable. So that should be right below it. New section. Okay, so it looks something like that. You'll see that you have your master grid, the wood doors, the resource manager, and now we have our master holdable. What we want to do is get the length of this. So drag off, put length. We want to make sure that there's actually something in there. So what you do is a greater than, so integer greater than integer. We make sure it's greater than 0. That means there's something in the array. And then we want to do a branch from this. So branch from the output of the get all actors of class, and then feed that greater than into the condition. So we want to make sure, okay, there's something that exists in this array. If there is, let's keep going forward. And now we're going to do from true a for each loop. What we're going to feed into that, though, is this out actor. So you can connect that over to the array. And then I'll just route this around it just so it looks nice. Something like that. Okay. And then from this, for each item that's in this array, we now want to drag from this array element, server new client connected. That's an event we created. And then I'm going to connect that over. So that's the loop body. So for each item, it's going to run this, and that should take care of it. So go ahead and compile and save that. One thing you'll want to do, because this does change the save game when, actually we can just do it at this point. So you open up your folder where you have all these files, and you can just delete saved. Now it's going to say it's in use. So let's go ahead and we'll do a save all. And we will also, I'm going to do fix up redirectors just to be safe. Okay, nothing needed to be done. Let's go ahead and close this because this will affect the files that are in there. I'm going to just delete my saved and intermediate. And then I'm going to relaunch the project. And that will get rid of any kind of a save game and make sure that it doesn't mess up. Make sure it doesn't mess up how it operates, because that fix won't actually integrate unless you do that. So go ahead and relaunch. And then we're going to be going back in and going into the player inventory component, because that does complete the fix for the holdables not attaching on the save load. So in the lower left, if you notice here, we'll reset those settings. I'm going to show the source panel, select survival game kit in the lower left now, and let's type player inventory component. In here, we will want to be in the event graph, so just make sure that that's where you're at on the left-hand side. And then we want to go to client set fire mode. Now, there's a lot of things in here, so the easiest way to find this is on the left-hand side. On the top, just type client set fire, and you'll see client set fire mode. Double click that, and it takes you right to the set of blueprints that we want to be at. We're going to set something in between this event and the blueprint it's calling. Go ahead and drag and make that a little bit wider. And what we will do is move over the update event or update fire mode blueprint, and in between do an is valid. So is valid, make sure it's the one with the white question mark. And then what you're going to feed into that is that inventory HUD. So I'm going to reroute these around a little bit just to get them a little bit cleaner. There we go. So if the inventory HUD is valid, then it'll allow it to move forward. If it is not, then it will not. So that should fix a warning that you were getting when there wasn't a valid HUD on the screen. We're going to continue in this player inventory component, but just go ahead and compile and save just to make sure that everything is loaded correctly. And we need to create a new custom event. We'll be doing that in this event graph. So what we can do is go to a blank area of the event graph, and then we will create a new custom event. Now there's a lot of different blueprints in here, so we can just go ahead and create it. I'm going to create it just above the begin play in this upper right area. There's a little bit of a blank space here. I'm going to do custom event, add a custom event, client update controller. And I want it to be executing on the owning client. So run on owning client. And then click reliable there. Now we're going to put some inputs into this, but the easiest way is, first of all, let's do right click and do a break transform. You'll see that it just puts that node here. What you can do is drag that in transform over to the event, and you'll see it creates it. I'm going to change it from in transform to just transform. And then from this, I want to drag off of the exec and then do set control rotation. Now, that exact one that I want isn't there. That's because I need to do it from the controller. So it's client update controller. This one will not, without putting that controller, will not show the correct one. So what this uses is the master character. But because we are using ALS, and if you follow my tutorials, this master character should match the ALS based character. You can see we've converted this over, and so we can still use master character. We'll drag off of that. Make sure you just filter on the upper left, search master character. You can drag that or right click and do get master character. You should see that there. Let's drag off of doing get controller. So you see here's a function for get controller. And now let's drag off of this and do set control rotation. And you see there's one that allows us to now do with that. I'm going to drag the exec pin to that. And then my rotation from the break, we're going to drag right into there. So go ahead and compile and save that. And then in here, we'll still need to go, we're going to remain in the player inventory component. And we need to go to the load save game section. And so in the upper left here, go ahead and put in the filter load save game. And you will see the function. Go ahead and double click that and look for set control rotation. And you'll see that, right? I mean, this is a pretty long one. But towards the right-hand side here, you see set control rotation. Zoom into that a little bit. You'll see the is valid check. I'm going to drag this, give myself a little more room. And then in between here, this is valid and the set control rotation. I want to do client update controller. That's an event that we created. So client update controller. And then the transform we want to do from this break from the player save. So you see the player transform, drag that up to the client update controller. What we can do is we'll move some of these things to the left a little bit. I'll just clean it up, something like that. So you can see all we've done is added this client update controller, make sure that player transform feeds into it, and then it continues on to the set control rotation. Go ahead and compile and save that. And now we're going to be moving into a HUD item. There's an issue with the ammo counts not showing correctly. And so in the showcase, you want to go to the lower left, and let's go ahead and filter for the inventory HUD. You see BP inventory HUD, open that up. And then in the lower left, you will see a total ammo count. If you're struggling to find it, just type ammo and you'll see total ammo count slash 120. Click that. And then go to the details panel on the right hand side. You'll see it says total ammo. And then we need to make a quick change here where it says bind. You see the drop down, hit create binding. That'll take you to some blueprints here. And then let's step through what these are. So we have get total ammo count currently. We need to do quite a few blueprints between here and here. What you could probably do is, let's just leave something like that. We'll just start from the left and work our way to the right. So let's just make sure that all this is correct. So we're basing this on the total ammo count. You can see I was in the here where it says total ammo. I did create binding. That then took me to this get total ammo count. And then we will go through and start adding some blueprints. So first of all, we want to get the inventory components, the player inventory component. So if you type get player inventory, you'll see get player inventory component, drag that out. And then we want to do an is valid check on this. Use the one with the question mark. I'm going to control click and drag that over to is valid and then connect these two pins. One thing I'm going to do is I don't want this name to be the way it is right now. So in the upper left, I just search for get total. And then you see where it says get total ammo text. Let's rename that. And then so we can do get total ammo. Just you can take that off. There we go. Now from here, we will go ahead and drag off of this player inventory component. And then we want to do a cast. So let's do a get first. Let's do a get held actor. So you see here, get held actor. And from that, we'll able to get the proper cast. But we need to make sure that this is valid first before we move on. So from this is valid that's up top, we're going to drag off again and do as another is valid and do the question mark version. And let's just check this held actor with that input object, make sure that is correct. And then from here, we'll do an is valid or a drag off of is valid, and we'll do the cast to the master range weapon. But to do that, I'm going to drag off of this held actor and do cast to master range weapon. And you should see that blueprint right there. From is valid, I'm going to control click and drag that to the right side and connect the is valid over. Now, one thing we will need to do is if these aren't valid, we still need to return. So what we'll do is append and do a / because we still want it to return a text of 0. So we're going to say there is 0 ammo. If it doesn't see that you're holding something, I still want to have it return information. And then we're going to do a to text. It says to text string. And then from this, let's go ahead and do a return. Now, you can't just drag off of it. So you see here this return I did at the very end. Make a copy of this because we're going to have multiples of these. So Control C and Control V, and then drag that return value to that one. And then we need to connect this first, is not valid. Connect that over, and then do a reroute here. So it's a nice straight line over. And then we need to connect to it a couple times. So double click below the next is not valid, and then connect it down. Something like that. And then from the cast failed, you can go ahead and drag that into the return node as well. So it should look about something like this. And then you can bring that over. So the end result should be to where all of the fails, all of the is nots valids, pretty much all go down into that return node. Now let's go ahead and continue on. So we have this master range weapon. What we don't want to do is get the ammo item. So do get ammo item. And you'll see that at the very bottom after you filter it. And what we need to do is break this because we only need one of the pieces of information that's returning. So right click on the circle where it says ammo item and do a split. And you can see now we can get just the name. From this, I want to do a make item inventory. So you need to right click and do a make item inventory. You'll see that right here. And then drag that over to the ID and it should do a little converter for us. It'll convert that text over to a string. So it's going from a name to a string. And then we'll need to add something after this to the get item total. So go ahead and drag off of, but first, before we do this, we're going to need something that actually relies on the player inventory component. So do a right click and do a get player inventory component. And then we'll drag off of this and do a get item total. See that right there. Put that in line so that we can connect it up. And then I'm just going to drag that over to get item total. I'm going to set that up there for now. We'll have that in a minute, so we don't have to keep moving it over. And then the item, so the S item inventory, go and drag that over to that item. So you can now see they're connected up here, and everything is taken care of up to this point of get item total. Now we want to have this return node, but we're going to put a number of things between it and the get item total. So we need to first do an append, because we're going to be combining text. And then I'm going to drag this total count to B, like this. And then I'm going to put a / in A. Now, I'm not sure. One thing, I think that this should be fine. I don't know if there's a space. There might be like a space before and after. Kind of hard to say, but you might want to just kind of play with that and see visually how it looks. But right now I'm just doing a / there. But if it looks like it's too close, you can put a space there. And now let's do from return value to text. And then that will be feeding into the return value. And then going to connect up from get item total to that return node. And it should look like this. Go and compile and save that. And now we can move on to, we're going to go to the build preview. So this should be compiled and saved. You can now close that inventory HUD. If you look at the designer, everything here should compile just fine. Now in the survival game kit in the lower left, go ahead and let's filter again. Let's do build preview. Open that up. And then we want to go on the left-hand side here, so the middle left, where it says my blueprint, and we want to search for get overlapping. You'll see get overlapping actors. Go ahead and double-click that. Now there is a section here that says trace find any actors. And so we need to make sure that we're there. It's right in the middle before the big comment box. And right now it says get overlapping actors, and it's using safe overlap check. Well, we want to change that. We want to do it to selected mesh. So right click to get selected mesh. Go to the very bottom and you'll see a component for that. So get selected mesh. And then that is going to go into the get overlapping actors instead of this safe overlap check. So you can see the rest of this should be the same. It goes up into the for each loop. So just make sure you have selected mesh feeding into there. Now, while we're still in this get overlapping actors, we need to go to the lower right, and you see where it says check using grid. This comment box to the very lower right, and we're going to redo some of this. So we have on here, we have our build part info. That is correct. And we are breaking it. We have grid required. And we have a branch. That is correct. But what we want to do, instead of this build type right here, we want to now have that actually go into the break. So this build part info, you can just kind of drag it in the middle there and drag that over to this break instead of the build type here. See, I'm getting that one to move it down. I'm going to have the same information that was feeding into this top one feed into the bottom. So we have build part info goes to break right here. I'll get it all a little bit closer. It's easier to see. Okay, so we've got the build part info feeding into the break. The type is being fed to make sure it equals foundation, and then that is going up to the branch. Now, we don't need this grid hit anymore. So you can go ahead and delete grid hit, and then just move so it says false. So it ends up being like that. So we have our first branch check that's just checking is grid required. If it's false, moves on. And then we can actually move this quite a bit closer. There we go. And then it moves on. And then if it is a foundation is the type, then we don't want to move forward. And so it goes false. And then that goes into the return node. So go ahead and compile that. And then you can save it. We're going to still be in this build preview for this next part, but we need to go to set build type. So on the left-hand side, search for set build type and open that up. And then on the right-hand side, we're going to redo some of these things. So we have the safe overlap check, reset relative transform. We have our selected mesh, and we're getting the local bounds here. Now let's go ahead and redo from here over. So you can see it's got to where it's subtracting things. I don't want to do that. And I'm not going to add relative location to this. So we can delete that. We can delete the safe overlap check. And then delete all of these where they are subtracting and dividing things. So what I want to do instead is, if you want, you can right click and recombine that struct. That's fine. I'm going to break from the min now. So break. And then we're going to feed these into this set box x10. So X connect right up into there, Y, and Z. You can see there, those should now feed directly into it. Let's go to the section below it now. And we have selected mesh, get local bounds. That's still correct. This is going to be a little bit different. So see here, this says get component bounds. We need to change that. So it needs to be get local bounds. So go ahead and delete this, drag off of selected mesh and do get local bounds. And then connect max to that break vector. And then we're going to start redoing some of these things. So we still have the safe overlap check to the set box extent. That's fine. But we need to delete all these, kind of like we did above, where they're subtracting from things. And now I'm going to have X feed directly into X. I'm going to have Y feed directly into Y. And we're going to have something actually be a little bit different here for Z. So from Z, we want to drag off and do a multiply. So do the multiply symbol. So float, multiply float. We're going to put that to 0.5. So it's going to pretty much have it. And then put that into Z. I'm going to drag this up a little bit so it's easier to read. There we go. And then all these reroute pins that are going below, go and delete those because we're going to redo from here over. All right, so we've got our set box extent, and now we're going to do a get actor location. Look like this. We're going to break that. And then we are going to make. So drag off of X and do a make vector. So they should be right next to each other. X and Y, you're going to connect those right together. But we're going to take this value of Z that we had earlier, drag off of that. Let's do a plus. So float plus float. Bring that over a little bit closer. Right here. I'm going to make it add 15 to that. So it should say plus 15. Myself a little more room here. And shrink it back down after we're done. All right. So now what we want to do is add Z. So plus, so do float plus float here. And this one where we added 15 to it. We're adding those together. And then that is feeding into Z. So we've now made a vector that takes this value, adds 15 to it, and adds that to Z. And then you can drag that up into, so we have add relative location. We don't want that anymore. We're going to drag off of this safe overlap check and do set world location. So set world location, going to connect the set box extent that was up there before. Drag this return value into new location. Make sure both of these boxes remain unchecked, and then compile and save that. Now, we're still in the build preview here, but we need to go to collision now. So on the left-hand side, type collision. See the placement collision, double click that. And what we want to do is find where it says, is there any overlapping with other actors? And it's that first comment box right there. What we have here is true. And then it goes, the return node is disable hide. Well, we want to change that to just disable. So it was disable hide. Now it's disable. Go ahead and compile that. And then you can save it. But on the left-hand side, we're going to go over to create foundation grid. Double click create foundation grid. And then find where it says check any overlapping actors. It's right in the middle there. And we're going to add a bunch of things between this loop and these two sets over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a decent amount of room. Zoom in. And first of all, I'm just going to drag these two right-hand comment boxes over a bit. And then I'm going to expand this comment box over. And then we're going to go ahead and move, let's just say from is valid here over. We don't really need to mess with these things that are down below, but this will get in the way. So I'm going to move these two reroutes over. And then I'm going to move from the is valid all the way over. Something like that. That should be more than enough room, and then we'll bring them back in here in a minute. So from this array element, we want to drag off of that and do a cast to master build part. And you'll see here, cast to master build part. Let's control click and drag that to the right side of it and connect in between them. Now we want to take this as BP master build part. We want to drag off of it and do build part info and do a get on that. And then we're going to break that information so we can get just the type out of it. I want to make sure that type equals foundation. So drag off of type and hit equals, and you'll see equals enum. And then you can hit the drop down and choose foundation there. So that'll give us a Boolean value, whether or not that equals. Now, over here we have an is valid check. We will be using that, but I need to reroute it because I just don't want to go through the middle of everything. So you can do something like this. So go from that array element over, and then you just have it connect up to the right here. From this, we need to do a branch. So you can drag off of the exec pin there and do branch, and then feed the result of checking if that's a foundation to it. True. we'll continue over to this branch here. False, we need to set return value L. So do set on that, make that true. And then now we can go ahead and move this over a little bit more. I'll make it to where lines are straight. There we go. And from here, I need to branch off. So double click the pin here and let's drag off of it. And we'll do a get class. So I'm getting if it's valid. And now I also want to do an and here. So and Boolean. And then we're going to make sure that this class does not equal something. So it's a not equals class. And the drop down for that is going to be BP plot pole build part. You want to make sure it's not the plot pole. And it is valid. If it's true, if it is, now that'll be the condition of this branch. So we can actually move some of these things over, just give ourselves some extra room. Bringing these things back in to where they need to be, and then we can shrink that comment box back up. There we go. So it should end up looking something like this. And these over here to the right, they stay the same. So now I can go ahead and bring back these two sections and shrink it back down. Go ahead and compile and save that. We can go ahead and close the build preview. And then we're going to open up the master range weapon. On the left, let's go ahead and search for weapon trace. Open up that. It should be under shooting. And then we need to find at the beginning where it says get master grid trace or get master grid actors. And then you'll see we'll come back. This says play the weapon fire montage. We're going to add some things between this. So go ahead and make it bigger to the left. Move the beginning point and the first comment over. And let's do a right click and do a get player inventory component. From there, we're going to get the master character. And then I'm going to do a get ignore actors L. From that array, we're going to do an add. So add. And then you just need to make sure that's connected up in between here. So you notice we can't connect this up because this ignore actor L is actually the incorrect type. So select it now. After you deleted the add, select ignore actor L. In the drop down here, where it says BP master grid, let's do actor. And you'll see here object types, actor. Hit change variable type. Now from there, let's do add. Now it'll let us connect up that master character. We can connect set to that and add. Okay. So it should end up looking like this. It's just going to add this actor to the array. And that should fix the issue with an emitter. The emitter was spawning on your own character, so it's not supposed to do that. It's supposed to ignore it. So it needs to make sure it properly adds the character to the ignore. So go ahead and compile and save that. And then there is one more improvement in here. Go ahead and hit save. So we need to go ahead and close this master range weapon. We're going to go to the master weapon now. Let's search for master weapon. And then in the event graph, you can make sure you're there, double click on the left and go to the beginning top right of this multicast spawn attachment. Then you should have multicast spawn hit emitter. So you can move that up if you want a little bit, but I'm going to be adding some things right here. This shouldn't really be in the way, but if it is, you can move it a little bit. So from here, we need to, first of all, drag off of the beginning where it says multicast spawn hit emitter and do a set decal start. Now that doesn't exist yet, so we need to create some of these variables. So in the lower left where it says variable, hit plus variable. And first one, let's call it decal start. We need to change the type to a vector. That'll make it yellow. And then also we need to add another one and call this one decal direction. Well, decal start, decal direction, and then now let's go ahead and set these. So set decal start. Drag that, so where it says decal start, drag that to the left of hit result. You'll see it adds decal start. Hit result's a little too big. I'm going to move it down a little bit. And then from the right of that, I'm going to do a set decal direction. And then go ahead and click and drag that to the left. And you'll see that adds decal direction. So we're setting both of those. Go ahead and hit compile there. Another one that we need to add is a melee hit Boolean. So first of all, we need to go through and make sure on here that we're in multicast spawn hit emitter. First of all, let's make sure there's no melee. See, there's no melee Boolean. So go ahead and where it says variables, hit plus. Just call this melee. That needs to be a Boolean. So hit the drop down and choose the red Boolean. And we also want to set the decal hit result. So that's something that we need to create as well. If you want, let's go ahead and make a little bit more room here because we're going to add a couple more things in. This is pretty cramped at the moment. So I'm just going to move the branch over pretty much. And then I'll move some of these other things a bit. So one thing we need to do is create another variable. So hit plus variable. So you should have decal start, decal direction, melee, and then we'll create another one called decal hit result. And the type for the dropdown is put hit result. And we're going to set this right before the decal start and direction. So set decal hit result. And we're going to feed hit result into that. So we've got set hit result. We're now setting. I'm going to clean these up a bit. The decal start. We're going to set this decal direction. Okay. And then we need to set the melee. So drag off of the decal direction, do set melee. And then we will feed, so click melee, drag it to the left. So it adds another pin for that. There we go. So it should end up looking something like this. Okay, so we're setting all those things and then those are feeding into the branch. Then you can go ahead and clean up some of these different things. Just so it's easier to follow the logic. Some of these things can be brought over a little bit. There we go. Try to clean this up a hair. There we go. All right, so pretty much we just added those things in between. And now we need to go to the very right-hand side where we see spawn decal at location. First of all, we need to add we got the decal lifespan. We need to add something that says decal lifespan that doesn't currently exist. And so if you hit plus for the variables, we'll call this decal lifespan. The type will be a float. You can drag that over and do a get. Drag that into the lifespan. And we can just put it for like 5 seconds. So compile, and then you'll be able to enter a default value into there. And change its value to 5. Also, the decal size, let's go ahead and change that to 5, 5, and 5. And then after the exec, we want to drag that. Actually, let's do the return value first and do a set fade screen size. Should connect that right up. And then we want to do, probably doesn't exist already, decal fade distance. So do another variable. Call that decal fade distance. And connect it up. And this is something that you can play with the values of this. I'm not sure what it's supposed to be, but let's just do 100 for playing around. If I see somewhere where he says what this is, but I don't see it in the notes what the distance should be. But I'll just put 100 and then we'll come back to that. So it should end up looking like this. Now we need to create a custom event. This will be in this event graph for the master weapon. You can do it above this multicast and do right click and do custom event. We'll call this one range decal. We need to first get the decal hit result. From that, we want to break it. We also want to get the surface decals. So sorry, get surface decal. And then out of that, we want to do a find. And then we want to use the physical material and do get surface type and feed that into this list. So it's going to search the surface decal list, find the surface type that matches it. Now let's do an is valid, the one with the question mark. And feed that find into the input object. So I want to make sure that it actually found it. If it did, that means it's valid. And then it'll continue on to spawn decal attached. That'll look like this. We want to drag this find into the decal material because that means that one did exist, a surface type did exist for that, so you can continue on. The size will be 10, 10, and 10. We want it to attach to the hit component. So right here it says hit component. We want to attach it to that. The impact point, we want that to be the location. The rotation, we want to take the impact normal and we want to get the rotation from X vector right here. And then drag that up to rotation. You want to keep world position. So hit the drop down there and do keep world position. And then the lifespan, we're going to use the decal lifespan that we set earlier. That way you can set them all at the once. If you ever decide you want it to be longer, you just change the variable and that'll make it longer. Now from this return value, let's do a quick is valid check on that. Do the one with the question mark, connect up the execs. And then we are going to go from this return value to set fade screen size. Go from isValid there. I'm going to reroute around this just so it's easy to see where things are going. And then set the decal fade distance. And connect that up. Should look like that. So go ahead and compile and save. So this will be the range decal. We also need to create a melee decal. So above that, right click and do custom event. Call this melee decal. We're going to do something similar. First of all, we're going to do get player inventory component. From that, we're going to get the master character. And then we're going to make an array. So that should be the beginning of this. Let's do, from the melee decal, let's do a line trace by channel. And then let's feed the array into the actors to ignore. That way you don't hit yourself. The trace channel should be visibility. But let's go ahead and look at decal start. So get decal start and get decal direction. We're going to add those together. Do a plus. So vector plus a vector. And then connect that up together and then put that to the start. So we're going to do some things for the end first. So let's go ahead and move this make array over a little bit, because from this plus, I'm going to drag down and do another plus. So vector plus vector. And I'm going to take this decal direction. I'm going to make a copy of it and paste it down below. I'm going to multiply. So do the multiply symbol and do a vector times a float. And this is how far from the character it's going to actually trace. And let's do 50,000. And then drag that into the plus. So it'll be from there forward 50,000. And that will be the end. So that just gives the distance. Don't do trace complex, do ignore self and leave this at none. So that should take care of that. The out hit, let's go ahead and do a break of that. And then we want to do blocking hit. We want to do a branch based on that. And connect up the output of the line trace. Do that. Now, we're going to need a little bit more room, because I need to do something that's fairly tall here. So you can move everything up if you don't have enough room. Let's do a get decal hit result. And we'll want to break that as well. I'm going to just stack those on top of each other. And what we want to do is see if this hit actor is equal. So do equal to the hit actor of the decal hit result. And that'll give us a Boolean return. So from true, let's do another branch. And then drag that Boolean result up to that. Now, to the right of this, we're going to be pulling some various values. So from physical material, let's go and drag off of that and do a get surface type. We'll be using that in a minute. And we want to, from impact normal, drag off and do rotation from X vector. We'll be using that in a minute as well. From the surface type, we want to see if it matches. So we want to do a find. Find of a map. But we want to do the surface decal. So this one isn't going to show you the proper one. So let's go ahead and do get surface decals first. And then let's drag off of this and do find. There we go. That'll give us the proper ones. Now you connect up the surface type. We want to do an is valid. Make sure I actually found one on this. So drag off of true and do is valid with a question mark, of course. And drag the output of that. So it'll only continue forward if it did find a proper surface type. And then from is valid, we're going to spawn a decal attached. And here's where we're going to start feeding various things in. So from that find, go ahead and drag the decal material into that. For the decal size, let's go ahead and put 10, 10, and 10. The attached component, we want that to connect to this hit component here. So go ahead and drag that over, and then you can reroute those nodes to match up however you'd like it to. So it looks good. Something like that. The impact point, we want that to go to the location. So what I'll do is clean this up a little bit. There we go. And then this rotate from X vector that we put earlier, you want that to go into rotation. The drop down, you want to make that say keep world position. And then lifespan, we're going to do this decal lifespan. Drag that over, do a get, and connect it up. After this, we want to do an is valid check based on this return value. So do is valid, question mark. Connect those together. Do this decal fade distance. Do a get of that. Drag from this return value here and do a set fade screen size. And connect that to is valid. I'm going to reroute around this just so it's easy to see that that's connecting up properly. And then you can connect that screen size. So it should end up looking something like that. Go ahead and compile and save that. And then in the master range weapon, go to the very end of the red area. What we will do is delete all of this. Okay, so it'll look like this. We don't even need this rotation from vector now. There we go. So it'll look like this. We're doing an is valid check. And then we'll do a get melee. You can even delete these two vectors up here. We're going to do a branch from the is valid. Connect up melee. And then from true, if it's true, we're going to do a melee decal. And if it's false, we'll do a range decal. That way it spawns the correct one based on melee versus a ranged weapon. So compile and save that. And now we're going to go into the master melee weapon. So go ahead and close this master weapon and open up master melee weapon. And we want to go to the very end here. We have the multicast spawn hit emitter where it says hit result, but these things aren't filled in. You see there at the very end. We want to fill some of these in. So to do that, let's go ahead and drag out here. We'll need a decent amount of room, so go and drag that to the right. First, let's get the player inventory component. We will get the master character. We're going to get the screen center. And that will be the decal start. There you go. So look at that. And now from this, we'll do the player inventory component, the master character. I'm going to move this over to the left more. We'll do get controller. Get or cast to player controller. I'm going to right click this. I'm going to make it a pure cast. It'll end up looking like this. I'm going to get control rotation. And then from that, I'm going to get rotation X vector. So we'll move this over even more because I need to feed that into that multicast. So that will be the decal direction, and then check melee because these are all melee. So we're going to do that 3 times. So now that I've done it once, I'm going to highlight all of this. So all the things that I added, I'm going to Control C. And then I'm going to Control V that. Something like this. I'm going to move this over the proper amount. And then connect all of these back up. So it'll end up looking like that. Make sure melee is checked. Same thing for this last one. You can move it over. Paste it. Put it about the right direction away. Starts the screen center, decal direction, check melee. There we go. So they should end up looking like that. So that should complete the fixes for 1.8.2. The last thing that we need to do is go to the map or the level and choose where it says 1.8.1. Go to details and change that to 1.8.2 because that will help you to remember in the future, if you haven't touched it for a little while, what version you're currently on. Do a save all. Right click on content, fix up redirectors. So I went really quick and looked at the settings that we're going to need because he didn't include them in the tutorial. But if you go to the master weapon, the decal fade distance, I just want to make sure we set this correctly before. That way, you're not going in there and it's like, oh, this isn't working correctly. I want to set this decal fade distance, and that needs to be 0.005. So 0.005. Let's do instanced editable. I'm going to put the category to weapon settings. Same thing. Let's go through each of these that we've done. So we have the surface emitter. Let's make that instanced editable. The decal, surface decal, make that instanced editable. And also we have our decal lifespan. Check that box for instance editable. We also, so this is pretty much the decal hit result. That should be fine as it is. You could move it to non-edit. Oh. And double checking some of these variables that we created. Melee you can move, that's in non-edit. Or melee you can move to non-edit. Decal start and decal direction, you can also put those in non-edit. And decal lifespan, you can go ahead and move that to the weapon settings. There we go. So let's go ahead and test that now. Make sure that those decals are showing up properly. There we go. So you can see those show up. As they get far enough away, then it'll cause them to disappear. You can tweak that setting, but at 100, it would have never shown any decals. So that should complete the getting it to 1.8.2. So if you're interested in more of these tutorials, make sure you hit the like and subscribe and the little bell at the bottom of this video. Also, make sure you join our Discord server if you want to ask questions, give information to other people. If you just want to hang out and be a part of the community. Also, there's a Patreon if you're interested in supporting financially and helping to purchase other assets. And make sure you just share this video with someone else. If there's another person who's interested in Unreal Engine game development, tell them about it, because that's the great way to help grow this community. I thank you for all the support you guys have given me up to this point. I look forward to doing more videos for you, and I will see you all later.